Hello and welcome to the GreenPilled Network podcast. If you're just joining us, we are building a coordination, a network society of thousands of hackers, dreamers, and doers using crypto to bring positive sum digital systems to the world. This podcast features the people who are doing it, and we publish a season of 5 to 10 episodes every couple months. This season is Lean Mean Capital Allocation Machine. The world is going on chain. In what ways will programmable money allow us to program our values into our money? In what ways can we build more scalable, precise, democratic capital allocation than was ever possible before? How do we build crypto economic systems that allocate capital in a protopian and pro social way at scale? What are the coolest experiments? These are the themes of Greenpill Season 4, a lean, mean capital allocation machines. My guests today are Will Little and Michelle Schubert. Who are working on Impact Stream. Will is the managing director of Proto Ventures, and Michelle Schubert is the executive director of Impact Stream and director of global resources at International Literacy and Development. Will and Michelle were back on the pod about 12 months ago in 2023. I'm excited to have them back on the show to share some updates about what Impact Stream is doing. So, for the benefit of listeners who did not catch the last episode, you can catch the last episode is linked in the show notes. But basically, Impact Stream is a decentralized NGO that is doing a pilot in the African nation of Togo in order to allow them to do a quadratic vote on which projects in Togo they want to see supported. And this is a totally crypto native project built on Gitcoin's Aloe protocol that allows the citizens in Togo to allocate capital according to what they actually need. So if you go to the impact.stream website, you can see that the top projects were a technology education center for adults, a youth professional training for textile and apparel manufacturing project, a community library, a solar powered clean water access project, new equipment for an elementary school, health clinic equipment upgrade. So these are all examples of projects that on the ground are being used by citizens of the local community. And Impact Stream is taking crypto from people in the West and people who want to fund this pilot and allocating it according to the votes of the people on the ground. So the subject matter here is how can crypto regenerate the world? How can we disrupt philanthropy and NGOs with crypto? If you in the episode, Will and Michelle are really sort of proving out that it's possible to disrupt the NGO model with more effective capital allocation, but also more efficient capital allocation. So I'm just really excited about this pilot. Happy to be a donor and sponsor of Will and Michelle and Impact Stream. And we'll keep following their journey on the Greenfield podcast as long as they keep doing great work. So I think you're going to enjoy this episode with Will and Michelle of Impact Stream. Hey, Michelle. Hey, Will. How's it going?
Hey, it's going good. How are you doing?
Pretty good. Excited to talk about Impact Stream and your successful first pilot. But let's start with the basics. Remind us what Impact Stream is.
Impact Stream is a new way of doing nonprofit work. It's a an app that was launched in West Africa last year that allows for communities to propose solutions to the problems that they are facing, read each other's proposals, vote on those proposals on chain, and then have the funds for those proposals to be sent directly to them, and they are the ones who execute the benefit to their community.
Yeah, I mean, what I'll add to that is like as a donor over the years, I'm always just like trusting that the founders or the executives or the operating team of these NGOs are doing what they say they're going to do. But one of the beautiful promises of Web3 is that blockchain allows that transparency now. I can see money moving from wallet to wallet, and also with quadratic voting now, right, where local people can propose local solutions to local problems, right? Their own entrepreneurs can build these regenerative and sustainable projects to kind of lift holistically develop their communities. The transparent voting on chain is really critical. So really harnessing the transparency on chain for payments and transparency on chain for voting allows us to decentralize this poverty alleviation work. And so that's, as we dive into it, that's really what we've been able to accomplish here with our first trial in West Africa.
Yeah. So we're in the category of using crypto to decentralize what an NGO would do to democratize the voting of where funds are spent. And I guess like really zooming out, this is crypto disrupting the NGO space and in the impact space.
Yeah, exactly.
100%.
Cool. Well, I will remind the listener that we have done an episode on Impact Stream about 12 months ago. The link to that episode will be in the show notes. If you want to hear all about the pilot and actually hear from people involved in the pilot, you can listen to that episode. But let's actually get into the pilot results on this episode. I'd love to hear how the first pilot went. Was it a success? What did you learn? And what's next?
Yeah. So it was on our end, it was difficult, and that was a development problem. It was a heavy lift to like build and get out there. But once it was launched and people started using the app grew pretty exponentially from 5 to 10 users over 100 by the time that voting happened. I think 120. I think by the time that voting happened, we had like 45 unique proposals submitted.
Yeah, and these are people, sorry to interrupt, but these are people in West Africa, right? So these are people using their Togolese cell numbers
Mhm.
to sign into the app, which then we use Privy to automatically create EVM addresses so that we can kind of deploy this on any chain. So
Yeah.
sorry. Go.
Oh, yeah, Privy was clutch. Good thing you mentioned that. Yeah, a lot of these people don't have any tech background, and I think it's something like 30 or 40% of the households have a smartphone in this area. And so that was one barrier to entry to being on the app in West Africa was you had to have a smartphone. But, that did give us coverage to, 30 to 40% of the rural areas that we were working in. So yeah, about 45 unique proposals were submitted, and that was really cool to see because it was, "Hey, what's wrong in your community and how would you solve it?" And then the people themselves had to prove they could solve it with, kind of just timeline, budget, and things like that, and milestones. And it was really cool to see, I've worked in nonprofit work and poverty alleviation adjacent work for 10 years, and a lot of the proposals that were submitted, we would have never thought to make that an initiative, you know? So it was really cool to see the local people, obviously, and this is common sense to you when you're one step removed, but the local people know what they need, and also have ideas on how to solve those problems. So that was really cool to see. And then yeah, voting happened, and the results of that are really, really neat. I'm trying to open up to show our all the projects that got voted for. Will, do you have anything to add there?
Yeah, I mean, it really, because cross culture work is so difficult, think you know what somebody needs. But what this application actually allows is for the local people to surface those local problems and then use quadratic voting to rank from top to bottom like what they want to see. And obviously this goes through trust networks, and we can talk about the implementation details and talk about how we prevent all the potential pitfalls in this process. But
Yeah.
that is really the key thing, and we were surprised. I mean, I was totally surprised. The number one project was not something that we necessarily anticipated. Michelle, you want to chat about what that was?
Yeah, so the number one voted project was an adult technology education center. And this was a local man named Laurent. He already had been teaching adults to how to use computers and how to, if you've grown up in a village and you've never, really had computer education or never maybe even used a computer, it's very hard for you to get a job, even maybe as like a clerk at like a gas station, or think of anything that would happen as urbanization is moving toward your village. Technology is very important to know how to use. So the number one voted project was his project to scale and allow more adults to take his technology education training. So yeah, that was the top voted one. We ended up being able to fund about 6 projects, 7 if one of the projects was 2 wells. So we ended up kind of being able to fund 7 projects. But yeah, another training program for young adults was second, and that was for textile and apparel manufacturing. And then a community library was number 3. Number 4 was those 2 solar powered clean water wells.
Yeah, and that's interesting, right? I mean, coming from the West, we would think that something related to healthcare or something related to clean water or something right related to any number of sort of basic like survival aspects would be voted, but the top 3 projects, right, were education related, right? It was a this technology education center, and then the training, and then the education in the library.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
that's, I think, super telling, right? I mean, just the inner scientist in me. I spent a decade in a bioengineering lab running science experiments, and you try to do your best to set up experiments so that the data speaks for itself and you don't try to bias those results. Well, I think this was one of those, and we're happy to be able to serve and create these public goods for folks.
Yeah. The
Or more importantly, they're creating the public goods themselves, right?
Right.
We're just empowering it with money, and then we'll chat about sort of how we're implementing it on the ground.
Next was new equipment for an elementary school. This one was really cute because not only did they ask for desks and chairs and books and things like that, they also asked for a swing set and a slide. And I know that doesn't sound like bizarre or strange to us, but I've never ever seen in any of the village areas, I've never seen a swing set and a slide. Out in these village areas, I see kids playing soccer with a lime or with a box. And so it's really cool to see. We have pictures on our website, pictures of the little kids that are involved in this elementary school equipment build. So that was just really really adorable. And then the final.
Hold on, before we get to the final one, I think we skipped over number 4 pretty quickly there. That was actually pretty amazing that they came under budget and did two wells, right? You want to chat a little bit more about it? And it's actually a pretty elaborate well solar power system, right?
Yeah, it is. It's really awesome. So this is an area that clean water is just not available. And I had been working for many years actually to try to get clean water to this area. In fact, before Impact Stream, Will and I was working with International Literacy and Development at the time, awesome organization. We all teamed up to help a local man start a well drilling business because it was such a need to have clean water in this area. And interestingly, so we've always wanted a well. Actually, it was. I also did help to get latrines built out in this area, so they didn't have bathrooms anywhere. And there's a middle school and a high school that I had participated in getting out there, but those middle school and high school didn't have bathrooms, so the young girls were staying at home for about a week every month, just because there was no proper area for sanitization and stuff. And in hopes of getting a latrine someday, we dug a huge hole out there. And that was going to be like, eventually we'll build a latrine here, but there's a hole here for now. And last time I went out and visited, there was, before the latrines got built, I saw like a Pennzoil can. I don't know. I mean, like a little plastic jug with a rope on it and hanging out of that hole. And I asked the headmaster of the school that I was on a walk with, I said, "Hey, what's going on here? What's this like, jug with a rope on it?" He goes, "Oh, when it rains, this like hole is great. It fills up with water and we can throw the jug in to like pull up water from the hole to drink." And you're like, "You're drinking water out of a hole? Like because it rains?" Like that's the dire need for water in this area. And so I was ecstatic that in that exact same location, less than like 50 feet away from that hole, there's now a solar powered well. And not only that, it also powers the latrines and gives water to not only the school but to the surrounding village. So that was really awesome to see.
And then the 6th project was the health clinic upgrade.
Health clinic equipment upgrade thing. Basic, in this area there's about one doctor for every 25,000 people. So really, really dire need for doctors, for clinics, etc. And as you can imagine, the clinics aren't decked out the way that we would think of a clinic. So this was getting some really awesome and basic things, like birthing beds and things like that.
Yeah, and a huge shout out to Coin FX. They're our partners. They have a brand called Move Money that we spent a lot of time working on off ramp solutions from crypto into fiat. Right, they have a local e-money application called T Money, which is equivalent to kind of Venmo for those of us in the United States, and they use this T Money application for all kinds of commerce. And, a lot of countries around the world have their kind of native e-money app, And so the off ramp from crypto into that T money, we just found just an extraordinary partner in CoinFX and Move Money and the CFX Labs team. And that facilitated, it just saved us a lot of fees, a lot of hassle. So a huge shout out to them. And that's, that really enabled this, and specifically the sort of the Web3 off ramp part of it. So
Yeah.
thanks to that crew.
And on that note, I want to throw in there that it is incredible to me that, and I'm excited that this is finally the case. I feel like we're finally getting to the point where we can be creating mechanisms on blockchain and tools on blockchain where the user doesn't know they're on blockchain. Like that's such a barrier to entry. It's so, even to somebody that's involved in tech, it can be intimidating and confusing. And I don't know if I'm clicking the right thing, or am I on the right chain? Do I send it from here to there? And we were able to create Impact Stream app in a way that the user just doesn't have to worry about that. Doesn't know they're on chain, doesn't need to know. I mean, they might know if they, read the website or something, but they don't need to know. They don't need to have special, tech background in order to successfully use the app.
Seems like the pilot was a great success. I mean, that's totally reductionist, but just want to say congratulations on proving out that crypto can be used in this way and having followed the project. And from the beginning, I know that how serious you all were with setting up an NGO, actually flying out to Togo and partnering with the local community there and doing a lot of the legwork that I think is just really really neat to see. So congratulations on a successful pilot.
Yeah, thank you.
Cheers for that, Kevin. Yeah. So the key aspect of this is we want other NGOs or anyone doing holistic development work, any kind of poverty alleviation work, or anything that requires surfacing information about what local people need and how local people can solve their own local problems. And so, yeah, for us in West Africa, the opportunity both in that surrounding region and for other people to come on and help volunteer to make this successful for us is really key. And this is not an application at this point. We haven't designed it for it to be just scattershot used in mass, right? I don't think we can support thousands, 10,000s of people running around necessarily together. Although I'd love to partner with somebody that help implement something like this. At this point, it definitely relies on trust networks, right? The 120, what was it, Michelle? 120 people or so got onto the application, but we knew them through Jacques and Azaria and Latte and Minin, right? And the community there in West Africa. And that's how we knew that there wasn't fraud happening on this application. We knew that those 126 were individual humans, and we knew that as we're bringing in the tranches of money, right, there's going to be a total of around $60,000-$70,000 moved in a series of tranches as we get feedback and videos and photos about the progress of these 6 projects. And it's Jacques and Azaria on the ground who know the people in that community that are overseeing the administration of those projects, right? The movement of money, the sending of all the receipts, just and that's obviously key. So at this point, how we have it designed is that if you have a trust network somewhere in the world where a local community can vote on something like this, so you know that you have somebody like a Jacques and Azaria on the ground overseeing it, that's great. And that's actually a really key component of this, is that we don't have somebody from the West over there trying to, like, we don't need to be involved, right? I mean, we were over there initially to help train people how to use the app, but once they got it, they started training each other how to do it, right? And that's kind of the idea. We'd love other groups to use this and train their communities to submit proposals and run more of these rounds. And yeah, and then just a huge shout out to Gitcoin, the Aloe V2, the volunteer developers that help us implement that. We ended up using the Celo blockchain for where that quadratic voting was recorded. And yeah, any other commentary on that, Michelle? Did I miss anything on that sort of plug?
No, yeah, it was obviously made possible by the Aloe protocol from Gitcoin. So we were helpful. We're thankful for that.
Well, that's good to hear. The season theme this season for Greenpill is capital allocation. In what ways will we be able to build more scalable, precise, more democratic capital allocation in the 21st century than was ever possible before? And for me, this sort of serves as a shining example of doing decentralized democratic capital allocation that would disrupt NGOs. So basically, disrupting the administrative NGO sort of game. And sort of it seems like y'all did this much more effectively from the perspective of the Togolese, because they actually got a say in what was going to be distributed. But it seems like there was way less administrative overhead than if you hadn't done it on chain. Are those right? And also, like, I guess like maybe a way to ask you the question would be, what innovations does blockchain enable in the NGO space, and how does this pilot show examples of that?
Yeah, so I would say two main things. One is just the ability to, as Will had mentioned, the ability to gather data that is from the local people themselves, that is gathered in an incorruptible way. And the second is funding. Normally you would have had to have like a team on the ground, a large, maybe even a large team on the ground over there to complete all those things we just mentioned, the library, the this, the, like you would have had to have oversight, you would have had to pay Western salaries to Western people to, do all these things. And so by just, enabling the local people to be the heroes of the story, we saved probably 5x. We saved, a huge amount of money by not trying to control it ourselves. But then yeah, that point on data gathering, we could see this being used all over the place. Like, even here in the States, there's people that have wanted to, like, adopt a city block or something. I had a pastor come to me and say, "Wait, could I use this to, like, you know, distribute out this app to a city block, see if our church actually really wanted to do help or to give help, what could we actually do? What do the local people want?" Instead of us coming in and being like, "You know what you need? You need Bible verses every Saturday read out loud on a megaphone." Or maybe they actually would rather have a, dog run built, or, something. So anyways, we could see a lot of applications for it, and we're actually in the process of beginning a second iteration of the app that's even more democratized and even less need for oversight, because we're trying to incorporate a real heavy community attestation model where people can, like, thumbs up or thumbs down or report, like, yeah, this did happen, the well did get drilled there, or like report, like, no, this didn't happen, I live here, there's no well here. So we're trying to create ways of scaling that don't take even the amount of oversight that we used, which wasn't that much to begin with.
The ultimate goal is that instead of using T Money as an application on their mostly Android phones in Togo, they're using a crypto wallet. And the number that's on their crypto wallet, they perceive and know that that's quote unquote real money, right? And that they can just transact with that both in their local economy, but then that taps them into a global economy. And that will allow even more transparency from donor into a fund that then gets routed into, via the ranking via quadratic voting, gets routed into a project fund, which then gets routed into individual vendor wallets, which then gets routed into the employees of those vendors that are actually building the well or upgrading the clinic, right? Or remodeling the library, et cetera, et cetera. And so the minimal amount of trust, right? This fun word in Web3 called trust, right? We can trust that the math on these blockchains are actually working, so that the numbers that we see, right? These wallet addresses associated with the projects and with the funds and with the people, and then the number in the metadata with related to the voting, right? So we know that there's individual wallets and we know that there's voting happening. But at the end of the day, blockchain, and like any emerging technology, is just a tool, right? It's how does it augment humans? And so the idea is that if we decentralize this process, that people who are maybe connected to donors, maybe perhaps hopefully donors in those local communities, right? People that are connected to those donors through a trust network, through a social graph of, as I mentioned earlier, people like Jacques and Azaria that are then connected to that 125 or so people. We as we run more rounds, we may learn that maybe 1,000 is the right number. Maybe we learn that 50 is the right number. Maybe in different communities, the number may be larger or smaller. But blockchain allows the movement of the funds and the transparency of that data in a way that hasn't been before possible.
I wonder if you could extrapolate from here, if you see blockchain having a bigger impact on the NGO space and the impact space over the next 10 years or so. If you guys are maximally successful, what does it look like in 10 years?
Oh man. Well, I hope that's the case. As we mentioned, transparency is such an issue in nonprofit work. transparency, efficiency, all sorts of things that blockchain solves. So I hope that other people and other nonprofits see not only our project, but just, the benefits of blockchain in general. I mean, I could imagine it completely changing and being the gold standard for nonprofits in the future. That like you're not, right now you can go to a nonprofit and see like a stamp on the bottom of their website that says we have an A+ rating with charity navigators, or some sort of like thing that's giving them a medal for being transparent or something. But like this is transparency. Blockchain is transparency. So you wouldn't need a medal. You just say, no, here it is. Here's my ledger. This is our wallet address. Here's where our money's going.
Yeah, I think 10 years from now, donors will demand that they're using this impact stream app. We might rebrand it at some point, but they'll demand that the level of transparency and ease of movement of funds is there as like an absolute bare minimum. And then everything will come down to, do I trust the people overseeing building of these projects? Are they regenerative and sustainable and meet my goals as a donor? And and then if somebody doesn't use this type of application to allow local people to surface local solutions to their local problems, then it should be perceived as like, well, that's kind of like, that's not very academic of you to presume that you're providing aid for XYZ. And even in like disaster scenarios, right? The cake in Haiti, for example, right? That they completely wiped out the rice market because everybody started donating rice. And if there were a transparent way for the local people to start just immediately surfacing, this is what we need, this is what we need,
Hmm.
and allow everybody to vote on that, at least it would be less chaotic than just every well-meaning NGO flying to Haiti and doing, just dumping a relief and aid in a way that's not as methodical or thoughtful about what that means for the economy afterwards.
Yeah.
Well, I think this is great. I've been in so many conversations since joining the Web3 space about how blockchain is going to disrupt the way NGOs work and nonprofits work. And for every 1,000 people, I think there's one or two teams that actually are doing something big like this. So just want to say kudos to you. It's been cool to follow the story and to cover it on the Green Pill podcast. Is there anything that, as we wrap, I didn't ask that you want to say about this project, or just your views on the thesis behind this season, new capital allocation for NGOs?
Yeah, I had a lot of things to say on that, but I'll try to make it as brief as possible. First of all, we are announcing a new collective. We have sort of this new consortium of brands coming together, and Web3 brands, some protocols, hopefully NFT marketplace that we're porting right now, an NFT community. All of this will be hopefully announced very, very shortly, but we are a call to action for people to join us in this movement and potentially a new brand that's coming out that will create tangible impact for Web3 and then other emerging technologies that will inevitably use what we're talking about here in Web3 to disrupt NGO work. And so the original vision, in fact, of the name Impact Stream was that these Web3 communities that care about actual transparent impact, right, actual IRL public goods, would stream as a fraction of their transactions into these pools, which would then go to create impact. So if you're part of an NFT community or a protocol or a DAO of any kind, and you are interested in this kind of transparent donation for IRL impact, hit us up. Go to impact.stream, join our Discord. Just raise your hand and say, "Hey, I'm interested in helping." And we're looking for more volunteers and organizations to work with.
Thanks, Will. Same question to you.
I do. Can I give like a call to action here?
Let's
Um,
do it.
so you guys heard the first six projects, the top six voted. There were number 7 and number 8 were both clean water wells, and we don't have the money to do those. Number 8, the water well, the clean well for number 8 was for an orphanage, and the little kids in that orphanage are suffering from like parasitic encounters and or like also rashes all over their body from bathing in contaminated water, issues internally from drinking contaminated water. So yeah, I would encourage anybody who cares about this sort of thing, go to the website, donate, and be a part of what we're doing.
Yeah, and we've set up ENS addresses. So impactstream.eth is our top level budget for, staff and trying to move as much money through that as possible. And then for each round, we'll have a subdomain ENS. So we have togo.impactstream.eth, which that money, if you want to give directly to that wallet, that money goes directly to fund these projects, right? And that's kind of how this whole application works. We just fund the projects top to bottom in the ranking order until it runs out of money. So the more that we're able to put into togo.impactstream.eth, the more that we're able to fund these projects. So if you're willing to donate there, that can help fund this project number 7 and number 8.
All right. Well, this has been a fun episode. Congratulations on the successful pilot. And thanks for coming on the Green Pill podcast. And for the listeners, go to impact.stream in order to learn more about the project. And you can donate to impactstream.eth. Any other call to actions for the listeners as we wrap?
Join our Discord. We're just getting social media rolling. So yeah, find us on X/Twitter. Probably we'll do most of our updates. I think we'll have some stuff on LinkedIn as well. But yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Kevin.
All right. Thanks, y'all. Congrats.
Thanks.
All right, we just heard from Michelle and Will of Impact Stream. I am excited about this project because it is proving that crypto can be used in a cosmolocal way, basically taking the best practices from capital allocation in the cosmo in the global and applying it in a local place. And I think that there's a lot of upside for crypto to decentralize NGOs. Thanks for listening to the Network podcast. Again, we are featuring the people who are building a coordination, a network society of thousands of hackers, dreamers, and doers using crypto to bring positive sum digital systems to the world, like Will and Michelle and like Impact Stream. While you're here, if you enjoy the Green Pill podcast, you can collect Green Pill podcast episodes. Shout out to SkyDAO.eth, MMA on Chain.eth, ZeroXLucas.eth, JTNickel.eth, Hal.eth for being the top collectors of Green Pill podcast episodes. If you want to join the collectors of Green Pill podcast episodes, you can go to pods.media/greenpill to find all the episodes from this season and to start collecting. While you're here, please remember to subscribe, rate, and review. It really helps the algorithms prioritize regenerative crypto in everyone's feeds. Thanks so much for listening, and I will see you on the next one. Peace.